Hey guys, welcome back to We Watched the Movie. I am Mike, and this is a spoiler-free review of Flight Risk. Plot of the movie is that Michelle Dockery is a U.S. Marshal transporting a mob accountant witness who's about to testify. The pilot on this little metal with wings is Mark Wahlberg. You can't even say his name in a country way. It's just the most off that does country and Mark Wahlberg just absolutely don't go together. And bald. Bald as shit. Nope, bald as Actually, the real pilot is dead, and Mark Wahlberg's actually a hitman working for the mafia who's there to kill Topher Grace. The whole entire first half of this movie is just completely messed up. It's terrible. Hang in there. Don't leave. Don't stop watching it, whatever, because it's real bad. I mean, from the opening, it's like a CGI Alaskan cabin with like a CGI moose, and you're just like, what? This is, oh my God. And that they start off really quick with some really bad, dumb humor. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the movie Reindeer Games, which is an underrated Ben Affleck movie, by the way. Just sort of in its tone. Everything's a little bit off and strange and weird, but I enjoy that about this movie. The first half of the movie, though, the acting is really, really bad. Topher Grace felt like he didn't buy into anything that was going on in this movie until like halfway through it. In the first half of the movie, he's also miscast. Sure, he's supposed to be a dorky accountant who Mark Wahlberg's character even calls a pussy, but they paint him as this like Deadpoolish kind of character. He's like making wisecracks and it's not really landing. You can tell that he's not really feeling it until the plot and his character get a little bit more serious later in the film when the situation gets more dire. And that happens and he gets more serious. You can literally watch him ease into this character, and he actually becomes pretty darn good for the second half of the film. Same with Mark Wahlberg. We haven't seen him be a villain since Fear, right? But he was so good in Fear. Hey, Nicole, go give me a Diet Coke. You will forever hold your peace. He was awesome in Fear. He was scary as hell, and he really hasn't played a bad guy in the movies since then. So it's nice to see him actually. He needs to do these roles more often. He is far more interesting as a bad guy than he is a good guy, and it shows here. Yeah, it's crazy weird, and he looks dumb as shit with his weird bald head, but he's so much better once he actually stops the country thing and actually clicks on to, yeah, I'm here to fucking kill you. I'm gonna throw you out of this goddamn plane. It gets intrinsically better at that point, and he's actually frightening. There's a point where Mel Gibson was on the Joe Rogan show or whatever, and amongst all the stuff that was said on that, whatever, but there was a point where Mel Gibson was talking about this movie, and he said, no, Mark Wahlberg said some pretty crazy stuff. He went to a dark place for this role. He's like, there was a couple times where I actually had to rein him in and be like, okay, you can't say that. You can literally see the parts in the film where Mark Wahlberg had to pull back. There's so many nasty, dark things that are hinted at in this, and you're just like, wow, this is crazy, and it makes it far more interesting. There's one really gross scene in particular that happens that the prosthetics, the special effects people, just, you guys deserve your flowers for that moment. It was so gross, the ripping and the tearing. It was nasty. It was awesome. But there's also really dark dialogue and themes going on in this. Nothing too crazy. I don't want to oversell it or anything, but it makes the movie so much more interesting than other movies like it. And when I say other movies like it, I mean specifically movies like, and I mentioned this in my out of theater reaction for it, like Carry On that just came out on Netflix. Same quality of a film, all right? Nothing looks that great. There's some plot holes here. There's some weird writing. It's an attempt to throw back to old school 90s thrillers, which I love, but they just don't put the budget or the tender love and care into 90s type thrillers today like they did back then. And you can see that on the screen. Weird CGI, terrible lines here and there. Same thing with Carry On. But this movie is like Carry On if it grew up in a broken home and had a lazy eye. It's just kind of fucked up, and that makes it so much better, in my opinion, and more entertaining. If you look at the reviews for this, you're going to see exactly what you expect to see. It's going to be a bunch of people just going, ew, Mel Gibson. And fine, I feel how you want to about Mel Gibson. I'm not here to talk about that. You also, if you're a professional movie reviewer on Rotten Tomatoes, nobody really gives a fuck about your opinion of Mel Gibson as a person. Maybe you should just review the goddamn film. That just drives me crazy. Half the reviews are just like, oh my God, it's directed by Mel Gibson. Like, we all fucking knew that, dude. Like, shut up. One review on here in particular was so good, and it said it better than I ever could, so I'm just literally gonna shout this guy out. Frank Scheck from The Hollywood Reporter nailed it. He says, you'll be shaking your head at the sheer ludicrousness of it all, but it's a pretty good bet that you haven't once felt the desire to look at your phone. And that's the thing about it. To me, it is broken. If you want to look at this movie and you want to say, that sucked, that part sucked, that was dumb, you'll be able to for sure. Even after the end of the movie, you'll walk out, and I think everyone's like, I don't know how to react to that. But everything's just a little bit weird, but at the end of the day, it's still really entertaining. And I felt the exact same way. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't wonder how much time was left. I was entertained by the situation that I was watching unfold before me. And I think that's all you want with a thriller at the end of the day, right? And this one had just that little extra, just that jagged edge. It's just that little knife twist a little darker than your typical thriller, which I also really enjoyed and added something to it. And I also will say, it's so weird. I keep saying something's just a little bit off throughout this movie, and it's weird that Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson both worked for M. Night Shyamalan, or with M. Night Shyamalan before, because it feels a lot like an M. Night Shyamalan movie in a lot of ways. Just in the way that, like, the way people talk's a little strange. There's just something off about it, but kind of cool about it too. Wahlberg is so good as a villain, man. He's so good as a villain, and you'll get, I feel like, there's weird stuff in here. Like at one point he starts saying Nine Inch Nails lyrics, but he's not even saying them like in the right tone. It doesn't sound right. But then he'll just drop some line that's kind of fucked up. He'll be like, "I had sex with your mother last night. I hope she put her dentures back in when we were done." And you're like, what the fuck? He says way worse shit than that. They'll just be sitting there and he'll be making crazy face. They'll look back and I'm like, "Hey Topher, how's it going? I'm gonna take you to a warehouse and bend you over." Fun. It's entertaining as hell, and it's got some pretty good action scenes in it. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I don't know. I'll give it a 6.5 at the end of the day. I found it to be entertaining. And Michelle Dockery is good throughout the movie. I think she's good the entire time. It does not feel like a Mel Gibson picture. You got to know that going in. It's not going to feel like Braveheart or anything like that. Mel Gibson went to do this picture and set out, and he even said this, set out to make a kind of a dumb, turn your brain off popcorn thriller. And that's exactly what this is. It feels like he was trying to make a pulpy B movie kind of on purpose. And maybe he decided that because they didn't have, the greatest budget or something like that. But you can tell this is meant to be a B thriller movie. It's not going to feel like Braveheart. It's not going to feel like Apocalypto. So if you're going in with that, you got to get it right out of your brain. I think that was on purpose. I think that was a choice. And I think some people will get that and some people won't. I found it to be entertaining. And I think horror fans will have a good time with it too. If you go in understanding that it's not perfect by any means. Turn off your brain, You got to try to outrun the wind. And you could definitely see some moments where, had this been a big summer blockbuster that maybe Mel Gibson or someone like that could have directed, that had a lot of money behind it, where there would be perfectly timed laughter, or there would be perfectly timed like applause and crazy. Those moments are built into the film, and it's sort of awkward because you're like, I could see what they were going for there, but it didn't really land that way. I did not mean to do that pun at all, I swear to God. Speaking of landing, the sequence of which they are trying to put the plane down is so good. I mean, it's just filmed really well. Just the shot of how they work the plane. Honestly, when the plane's taken off, it's kind of, and you're getting the turbulence, it's shot really well. There is some Mel Gibson experience, talented directing amidst all the other stuff in the film, mainly with the plane stuff when they're going up and it's tense, and when they're trying to land that thing. I thought those scenes were really tense and they were shot really fun. So that is my review of Flight Risk. I am going to go see Presence, the new Steven Soderbergh movie, so I'll have a review up for that. Make sure you guys click the bell and have a subscribe click so you get that. And don't forget, we're live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday with Good Time Danny music news in your Satchel Paige pants, you fucking fucks. I love your all's fucking faces. I hope you guys have an amazing day. We shall talk soon.